Here is a square on coordinate axes. C is the centre of the square. Find the coordinates of P and Q. So let's look at P first. We can see that it's in line with this point here, which has an x coordinate of -12. So that means the x coordinate of P will be -12 as well. But now we need to find the y coordinate. We can see that the y coordinate of this point is 20 and the y coordinate of the point at the centre of the square is -5. Now the difference between 20 and -5 is 25, and because we know that C is the centre of the square, that means to find the y coordinate here, we need to subtract 25 from -5, because we'll have the same length on both sides of the centre, and 5 minus 25 is -30, so that means P has a y coordinate of -30. Now let's find the coordinates of Q. First, we need to find the x coordinate. We know that the x coordinate of this point is -12 and the x coordinate of point C, so the midpoint, is 13. Now the difference between -12 and 13 is 25, and because C is the centre, we'll have 25 on both sides. So to work out the x coordinate here, we need to work out 13 plus 25, so that's 38 as our x coordinate for point Q. And then for the y coordinate, we can see that point Q is in line with point P, and we found that that had a y coordinate of -30. So the y coordinate for point Q will be -30 as well. Kate has some rectangles. Each one is 4 centimetres by 9 centimetres. She makes a design with them. Calculate the width and height of her design. So we can see that the length of a rectangle is 9 centimetres, and for the width we have 2 rectangle lengths, and we also have 1 rectangle width, which we know is 4 centimetres. So to calculate the total width, we can work out 9 plus 4 plus 9, so the width is 22 centimetres. And now for the height, we can see that we have 2 widths of a rectangle, so that's 4 and 4, and we have 1 length, which is 9. So to work out the height, we have 4 plus 9 plus 4, so that's 17 centimetres. Here is a rectangle with 6 identical shaded squares inside it. The width of the rectangle is 7.2 centimetres. Calculate the length of the rectangle. So we know that the width is 7.2, and we can see that the width has a total of 3 squares. So the length of 3 squares is 7.2 centimetres. But we can see that the length is 5 squares. So if we know the length of 3 squares, how can we work out the length of 5 squares? Well, what we can do is first work out the length of 1 square. So if 3 squares are 7.2, we can divide 7.2 by 3 to find the length of 1 square. So that gives us 2.4. So if we know that each square is 2.4 centimetres and we have 5 squares, we can multiply 2.4 by 5, and that gives us 12.0, so that's 12 centimetres. On the grid, draw a triangle with the same area as the shaded rectangle. So remember, the area is how much space a shape takes up, and we can see that the rectangle takes up 8 squares. It has a length of 4 and a width of 2, and 4 times 2 is 8. So we need to draw a triangle with an area of 8 centimetres squared. Now to find the area of a triangle, we multiply the base by the height and then divide by 2. So because the area needs to be 8 centimeters squared, we need to think what times what divided by 2 is 8. Well, 16 divided by 2 is 8, and 4 times 4 is 16, divided by 2 is 8. So we could draw a triangle with a base of 4 and a height of 4. But it doesn't have to be a right-angled triangle like this. We could draw a triangle like this, because that still has a base of 4 and a height, so a distance from bottom to top of 4 as well. Or we could have a triangle like this, or this, or this. Or we could have a triangle of different dimensions. We could have a base of 8 and a height of 2. So we could draw a triangle something like this. Or we could have a base of 2 and a height of 8. So draw a triangle like this, because that will have an area of 8 centimeters squared, because to find the area of a triangle, we multiply the base by the height and then divide by 2. Anna says 4/7 is greater than 5/9. Explain why Anna is correct. So to compare fractions, we need the denominators to be the same. So we need a number that's in the 7 and the 9 times table. Well, 7 times 9 is 63, so we can find equivalent fractions which have a denominator of 63. We use multiplication to find equivalent fractions. 7 times 9 is 63, and if we do the same to the numerator, 4 times 9 is 36. 9 times 7 is 63, and 5 times 7 is 35. So 4/7 is larger because it's equivalent to 36 over 63. But 5/9 is only equivalent to 35 over 63. On the centimetre square grid, draw a parallelogram that has an area of 8 centimetres squared. So the area is the amount of space that a shape takes up, and to find the area of a parallelogram, we multiply the base by the height. So finding the area of a parallelogram is the same as finding the area of a rectangle. So we need the area to be 8 centimetres squared, and 4 times 2 is 8. So we can draw a parallelogram with a base of 4 centimetres and a height of 2. So that's 4 centimetres for the base, and we want the height, so the distance from bottom to top, to be 2 centimetres. But we want to draw a parallelogram, not a rectangle. So let's move this point 1 square to the right, and then for this point here, we can go up 2 and again move 1 square to the right, because that way we know that this line will be parallel to this line. So remember, parallel lines, lines that if we extend them will go on forever without ever crossing. So then we can just join up our points and we have a parallelogram with an area of 8 centimetres squared. Now we don't have to go 1 square across. We could have a parallelogram like this. So from this point we're going up 2 and then 2 squares across, and from this point up 2 and 2 squares across. Or we could go the other way, so we could go up 2 and 1 to the left. Or we could have a base of 2 centimetres and a height of 4. So we could draw a parallelogram like this. The base is 2 centimetres and the height, the distance from bottom to top, is 4 centimetres, and that will give an area of 8 centimetres squared. Write the letter of the arrow that points to the number 50,000. So we have 0 and 1 million marked on our number line, and to get from 0 to 1 million, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lines. So if we divide the difference, divide 1 million by 10, that gives us 100,000. So each of these little lines represent 100,000. So the first line after 0 is 100,000, and 50,000 is less than 100,000. In fact, it's half of 100,000. And the arrow that points halfway between 0 and 100,000 is arrow B. So B is pointing to the number 50,000. K stands for a whole number. K plus 7 is greater than 100. K minus 7 is less than 90. Find all the numbers that K could be. So we know that K plus 7 is greater than 100, and if we subtract 7 from 100, we get 93. So we know that 93 plus 7 is the same as 100, but we want a number greater than 100. So we need to have a value of K that's greater, more than 93. We also know that K minus 7 is less than 90. 90 plus 7 is 97. So 97 minus 7 is 90. But we want K minus 7 to be less than 90. So that means we need to use a number that's less than 97. So we know that K has to be more than 93 and less than 97. So K could be 94, 95 or 96. So if we check that this works, if K is 94, 94 plus 7 is 101, so that's greater than 100. And if K is 94, 94 minus 7 is 87, so that's less than 90. And then we can do the same to check 95 and 96. Raisins cost 80 pence for 100 grams. Jack pays £2 for a bag of raisins. How many grams of raisins does he get? So we know that 80 pence is 100 grams, but we want to know how many grams we get for £2. We can't multiply 80 pence by any whole number to get £2, but we can double 80 pence, so 80 pence times 2 is £1.60, and 100 times 2 is 200. So for £1.60 we can get 200 grams of raisins. And we can also find 40 pence, because 40 pence is half of 80 pence. 80 pence divided by 2 is 40 pence, and 100 divided by 2 is 50. So we know that 40 pence is 50 grams, and £1.60 is 200 grams. So if we put those together, £1.60 plus 40 pence is £2, and 200 grams plus 50 grams is 250 grams. So he gets 250 grams of raisins. The other way of working this out is to first divide 80 pence by 2, so work out that 40 pence is the same as 50 grams. And then when we know 40 pence, we can multiply to get £2. 40 times 5 is 200, so 40 pence times 5 is £2. And then 50 times 5 is 250, so our answer is 250 grams. A cuboid is made from centimetre cubes. It has a volume of 30 cubic centimetres. What could the length, height and width be? So to find the volume of a cuboid, we multiply the length, height and width. So we need to think what times what is 30. Well, 30 times 1 is 30, because 30 times 1 is 30, times 1 is 30. So we could have a length of 30 and a height and width of 1. Or we could have 15, 2 and 1. because 15 times 2 is 30 times 1 is still 30. We could have 5 times 3 times 2 because 5 times 3 is 15 times 2 is 30. Or we could have 6 times 5 times 1. 6 times 5 is 30 and 30 times 1 is 30.